All right, we're back. Ilyanka said, oh, she said, I'm in the first one. Hey, Sailor. Hey, Debbie. Good to know. Good to know that the notifications work. I don't know where Uli is. That's okay. We'll all come together. All right, back to the show. And by the way, that was 100% my fault. There's certain things on YouTube you can't say. When I said that he was obsessed with, I should have said a little short man in Germany that had a tiny mustache. I should not have said the word. Yeah, Melanie, they did, because your friend Brooksy said something I won't supposed to say. That's okay. We're back. You know what? Let's just go ahead and let's just have a big round of applause for YouTube. My goodness. My goodness. And I'm really excited for you guys to see this series and tell me what you think. Terry said, took me forever to get the link to come up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Ange said, but yet they let such BS run. Yeah. And here I was in the middle of my rant about Ziggy and Cher raising money for a polygraph test. And now they're like, oh, no, we're going to send the money to Brandy Neal. All right. So be it. So be it.
Monsters in real life, it's nearly impossible not to mention this grotesque man. A man whose entire upbringing and lifestyle throughout the years before his eventual arrest were so horrifying that it may shock even the biggest of criminals. From his morbid interests to his psychopathic tendencies and his schizophrenia, this ostracized individual is someone we should get to know more about. When someone mentions real-life horror, they're probably talking about none other than Ed Gein. That's why today we're taking a look at 15 insane facts about Ed Gein. Before we get too deep into this explanation, though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who exactly was Ed Gein and where did he come from? Edward Ed Gein, even today, is considered to be one of America's most infamous and disturbing criminals. His horrific actions would earn him nicknames like the Butcher of Plainfield and the Plainfield Ghoul. He was born in 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but the most notable moments of his life are linked to the small rural farmhouse in Plainfield where his crimes were eventually discovered. Gein was a murderer, a serial killer rather, as well as a grave robber who used to dig up recently buried corpses from local cemeteries and bring them back to his secluded home to perform even more vicious acts. His mental stability following the death of his domineering mother in 1945. After that, he was left completely alone. His isolation led him to commit horrifying crimes that would shock the nation when they were finally uncovered in 1957. What kind of objects did he make from human remains? The police entered Ed Gein's farmhouse in November 1957, and there they discovered an array of horror and morbidity that went far.
True story. I'm putting up my own post. I said, we give free polygraphs here. Just take the link. Take the link. Outdoorsy Life can figure it out. V. Oakley can figure it out. Cinnamon can figure it out. Chrissy can figure it out. Yeah, we don't need some kit from eBay. Hell to the no. screw a bunch of that. We can figure it out our damn selves. Correct?
Or beyond the single murder they were investigating. The home was a literal macabre workshop, which was filled with grotesque objects made from human remains. Among the gut-wrenching items in there was a chair that had undergone detailed upholstery using human skin, and then there was also a wastebasket made from the same material, along with bowls and cups made out of the tops of human skulls. That wasn't all. Arguably, the most chilling artifact was the masks, which were not simply costumes, but carefully peeled and preserved human faces which were intended to be worn, and most probably were, by Ed Gein. Such creations reveal a completely disturbing.
Well, he did. He was eating beans out of a human skull. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Hey, Miss Me. She said, I just started watching this. Woo, girl. I want to know what you think. Erica said, could you imagine eating out of a bowl made from human skin or a skull? Woo. And I'll never watch Dr. Gary again. Nah, not after his comment about, I'll get into that later. I'm not going to talk about it on this show.
Mind, a man with an obsessive goal, which he later explained to investigators. He was simply attempting to build a full-body garment made out of female skin, or rather, a woman's suit. Now, this suit, which included a vest with breasts and sexual organs still attached, was
a vest with breasts and women's, not one woman, sexual organs attached.
Later said to be his attempt to literally become his deceased mother, whom he idolized and aimed to resurrect in his own way. In addition to the furniture we've already mentioned, there were more, like a belt made of human nipples and leggings that were stitched from the skin of human legs. And these additional creations were likely components of this larger, more terrifying project. Every object here, from the skulls on his bedposts to the lampshade rumored to be made of a face, is evidence of his dark descent due to isolation, along with his dogmatic devotion to the only woman he ever loved. What kinds of body parts were found in his house? The inventory of human remains found inside Ed Gein's farmhouse was nothing short of a literal nightmare, beyond the ones we mentioned earlier.
Woo! And people that get into the spooky season, people that like Ripley's Believe It or Not, they like to look at the shrunken heads, and that does not mean they're an Ed Gein. Okay? Like I said, put Ed Gein against Ted Bundy and figure out who's crazier. All right? They're both crazy in their own right. But Ed, he takes the cake.
Earlier, the police also discovered a horrifying collection of body parts scattered throughout the property and stored in various containers, such as multiple human skulls, including the decapitated heads of his victims, Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden. Inside a shoebox, investigators made the discovery.
He used, excuse me, I didn't mean to cough in your ear. Hey, Ida, how are you? Oh, V. Oakley, look at her. She's being so nice today. V goes, well, at least Jeffrey didn't wear his mama. That's a good way to look at it. He used the heads for fellatio. Okay. He manipulated their mouths a certain way for his pleasure. Yeah.
Disgusting discovery of 9 preserved vulvas. Other disturbing items found in this
9 preserved vulvas. Not Volvo, not something that you drive. We know what it is.
additional collection of
I'm sitting on mine. I don't want it preserved in some freak's coffee can.
Gein's were a pair of human lips strung on a window shade cord, a collection of noses, human fingernails, and with all of those, preserved organs, including Bernice Worden's heart, which was found in a plastic bag near his stove. All of these revealed a terrorized mind that saw living and dead human beings and their bodies as materials to be used and collected. How many murders did Ed Gein commit? While the terrifying crimes committed by Gein alluded to him being a serial killer, it's worth noting that he was ever only officially convicted of 2 murders. Gein himself consistently confessed to just 2 homicides: the murder of Mary Hogan, a tavern owner who disappeared in 1954, and Bernice Worden, a hardware store clerk whose brutal murder in 1957 got him the attention of the investigative police and then followed the public limelight, which eventually led to his capture. But Worden's headless, gutted body was discovered hanging in his shed, and it was this discovery that prompted the full hands-on search of his property. It was during this search that investigators also found the preserved head of Mary Hogan, which helped them conclude her case by confirming his direct involvement in her death years earlier. All in all, during the long, drawn-out set of investigations from the police, which attempted to link Gein to several other missing persons cases, he was exonerated after lie detector tests suggested his innocence in those instances at least. How did his mother influence his twisted behavior? It's important to study more about Ed Gein's mother, Augusta, to understand and possibly make sense of Ed's actions. She was the absolute backbone of his life, quite literally. Augusta was a fanatically religious woman who controlled the family's isolated Wisconsin farm with her domineering nature. She taught Ed and his brother that the outside world was an evil place that was filled with corruption, along with instilling hatred for other women, all while presenting herself as the only pure and moral female in existence. She ensured that her sons were kept away from this supposed evil by moving them to a remote property and restricting their contact with anyone else. This hindered Ed from developing any social skills or even a healthy identity. Despite this abuse, Ed idolized her. He became completely dependent on her and embraced her arrogant worldview as his own. In 1945, her sudden death from a complete stroke was an event so catastrophic to him that it shattered his mind. Now left completely alone in the silent, empty house, he was filled with grief and, eventually, sanity. He was unable to let her go and even preserved her bedroom like a sacred shrine. It was this loss that led to his descent into malicious behavior. Ed became desperate to somehow bring Augusta back and, as a result, went on to rob graves for female corpses that reminded him of her. His ultimate goal was the creation of a woman suit from human skin to eventually become his own mother. She was the only woman he believed was worthy and pure. Literally becoming her was his way to escape his own broken reality. Did he exhume bodies from cemeteries?
Yes, he did, to make the woman suit. He did. That's when he started working on his mask. He believed that his mother was a saint. And from there, he decided to dig up graves of whores and make a woman suit to be closer to his mom.
The vast majority of the human remains that were found in Ed Gein's home were not from his murders. In fact, he himself claimed that he had dug most of them up from local graveyards and brought them up. Since he was, first and foremost, a grave robber, this also earned him the infamous nickname, the Plainfield Ghoul. Gein later confessed to investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he had nocturnally made around 40 visits to 3 local cemeteries. He claimed that he would often enter such places, usually in a trance-like state, but on at least 9 confirmed occasions, he successfully exhumed the recently buried bodies of middle-aged women who he felt resembled his mother. He would take these bodies back to his secluded farmhouse to be used as raw materials for his grotesque projects and often tan their skins to make his paraphernalia.
He would seriously tan the skins to make lampshades, gloves. And I think it's safe to say nobody was really paying attention in the 50s. If a grave is dug up, they just assumed somebody was stealing jewels off of somebody. Grave robbers were a big thing in that time. They weren't expecting someone to be actually taking out the whole bodies. They didn't think about it. Okay, remember, humans make mistakes. Humans make humans make mistakes. And so when they're like, okay, we have to, put it, get the grave back together. And he figured out how to tan skin. Okay, between putting the lotion on a dead body, he would also use his own urine to formulate the skin to make it more, as he said, pliable. Okay? To make it more pliable. And we got to admit, the dude is strong. Okay? He can obviously dig up a grave. He can drag dead bodies around. He's got some kind of strength that doesn't come from working out. Okay? That is a different type of adrenaline.
Prove his stories, he led authorities to the specific graves he had robbed. While they exhumed these test graves, they found the caskets empty or nearly empty, and sometimes with his own crowbar still inside, and this search would just end up corroborating his macabre confession. The meticulously planned grave robbing provided him with the skin and bones he needed to create his collection of horrific artifacts, while the small community of Plainfield remained completely oblivious to the ghoul that was Ed Gein living amongst them. What triggered his arrest in 1957? Ed Gein was arrested soon after the police concluded that he was directly responsible for the disappearance of a well-known local woman named Bernice Worden on November 16, 1957. The 58-year-old owner of a hardware store had vanished, and the investigation quickly led police to Gein. He had been seen near the store that morning, and there was a sales slip for a gallon of antifreeze written by Worden, which had his name on it. On top of that, her own son, a deputy sheriff named Frank Worden, had reported that Gein was the last
DT driver, you are so right. This is actually important to know. It doesn't make it any better. He would look for graves of someone that had just been buried. So he was digging up fresh soil. He wasn't getting through the roots and the rocks and everything. Very good point.
Person expected to see his mother alive. This was more than enough suspicion for the police to visit Gein's isolated farm. He wasn't home, but they entered the property anyways. The horror began almost immediately because in a dark shed, they discovered the horrifying sight of Bernice Worden's body. It was decapitated and hung by its ankles from the rafters like a slaughtered animal. But this scary discovery was the catalyst, as it immediately secured a murder charge and provided the legal grounds for a full search of the home, which is when the unimaginable scale of his necrophiliac activities and the full house of horrors was uncovered, one which...
All right, if you need to Google that word, go ahead. Necrophiliac. I don't want to explain it, but he was doing the boinky boink with dead people. Okay? Yes, my friends, that's what he was doing.
Shocked the entire nation. Was his brother's death suspicious? The death of Ed Gein's older brother Henry in 1944 is still considered to be fraught with suspicion, since the nature of the incident is widely considered anything but a simple accident. The two brothers were trying to put out a fire on their property when Henry mysteriously vanished. Ed reported him missing and then, somehow coincidentally, led the searchers directly to where his body was. Now, while the initial ruling listed the cause of death as asphyxiation or probable heart failure from smoke inhalation, several details pointed to foul play. Most notably, the body was found with multiple unexplained bruises on the head, as reported by biographer Harold Schechter. Along with that, the brothers had a known history of conflict, as Henry was the only person who challenged their mother's fanatical control and also criticized Ed's unhealthy obsession with her. This created a strong motive for murder, as Henry was a direct threat to the isolated world Ed and his mother had built. But despite these obvious red flags, no autopsy was performed, and the authorities quickly accepted the accident theory. In the wake of Ed's later crimes, investigators revisited this case, with many concluding that it was highly likely that Ed Gein murdered his own brother during the chaos of the fire. It's also key to remember that during Ed's questioning about the death of Bernice Worden in 1957, Joe Wilimowski, who was the state investigator then, brought up questions about Henry's death. Additionally, George Arndt, who studied the case, went on to infer that it's very possible that Henry's death was the Cain and Abel aspect of this case. But eventually, Ed was never officially held guilty. What mental health issues did he suffer from? After his arrest, Ed Gein was evaluated by psychiatrists who diagnosed him with schizophrenia, a severe mental disorder that majorly alters a person's sense of reality. This diagnosis is considered key to his legal fate as well. He was initially declared mentally incompetent to stand trial and was sent to a psychiatric hospital. His mental illness was a direct result of his traumatic upbringing, which was dominated by his fanatically religious and abusive mother, Augusta. She ensured that he stayed away from the world and also filled his head with terrifying.
You know, brain worms, that's what I've always wondered. I mean, we know that Ed Gein is schizophrenic. But I think Henry might have confronted his brother way too many times. And like on one hand, Ed hated his mother. And on the other hand, he loved her more than life itself. And so when Henry challenged him about his love for their mother, I think it went downhill real quick. And then when they said, oh, no, it's asphyxiation from this fire, and we can't explain, the bruising and everything. Well, so be it. And I mean, nobody can be wired that way without being a demon. I'm not trying to be, religious or anything here. I'm no Billy Graham. I'm no Oral Roberts. But there is such a thing as people that are just too effing evil to be human.
Beliefs that women were sinful and evil, which created a deeply conflicted love-hate relationship.
Raven said, not far from Norman Bates. That's what the whole movie is based on. The movie Psycho is based off of Ed Gein. They just didn't, Alfred Hitchcock just didn't put in the whole sewing a woman's suit and everything. We didn't get to that stuff until the 90s. Because, Gen Xers don't care.
And after her death, this crooked worldview rolled into an all-out psychosis where his inability to cope with sadness and grief caused him to turn to grave robbing and murder. When he finally did stand trial in 1968, the court found him guilty of murder, but legally insane at the time of his crimes, which meant that he couldn't be held criminally responsible for his disgusting wrongdoings. Experts also classified his behavior as that of a necrophile, driven by a sexual obsession with the corpses of women who reminded him of his mother. Eventually, he was remanded to and constantly moved from one psychiatric institution to another for the remainder of his life. Where did he spend his final years? After not being held accountable.
Woo! Woo! That's a lot to take in. That's a lot to think about. They said he had an obsession with his mother. He wanted his mom all to himself. And when his mom died, he went into necrophilia because that was his sexual compulsion. Well, I don't even know what to say about that. I don't even know what to say about that. Raven said, I knew that. This is coming back and timing seems wrong. Oh, honey, I wasn't trying to correct you. No. I thought you were having a conversation. I misunderstood. It's probably the craziest story, knock on wood, that anyone could ever hear. Anyone can ever hear. Oh, Jinbug's here. She said, Sicko. Yeah. By the way, check the members tab if you're a member, because I'm going to be putting up a video of Jinbug's cactus tree she did for Halloween. You guys know I get really hyped up about her cactus tree.
For his actions due to insanity, Ed Gein was never a prisoner as such. Rather, he spent the remainder of his life in state mental health institutions. He was initially held at a maximum security facility for the criminally insane, but was later transferred to the Mendota Mental Health Institute in Madison, Wisconsin in 1978.
Want to hear a fun fact? The Mendota, what is it? Mendota Mental Health Institute is now the Doge Correctional Facility where Chris Watts is at. What the F? Thank you so much, Angel P. Look at that. Trulia Beach just received a new Crime Lines and Laws membership. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
This was a minimum security psychiatric hospital where he lived out his final years. Reportedly, he was a quiet and cooperative patient there and caused no trouble for the staff. He remained at Mendota for 6 years until his death on July 26, 1984, at the age of 77. The official cause of death was respiratory failure, mainly as a part of lung cancer he had been battling. He was buried in an unmarked grave in the Plainfield Cemetery, right next to the family members who had very much shaped his tragic life. Direct portrayals of Ed Gein. Ed Gein's story has been brought to the screen and stage multiple times, often in a brief manner. The most notable direct adaptation is the 2000 film called In the Light of the Moon, which stars Steve Railsback in the main role, and the movie delves into his relationship with his domineering mother, Augusta. Another direct-to-video interpretation came in 2007 with The Butcher of Plainfield, which featured Kane Hodder as Gein this time. Additionally, the killer's influence has even reached the stage, with a 2012 German play called Cannibal und Liebe, which translates to Cannibal in Love. In 2022, Shane Kerwin played Gein for a brief appearance in the first season of Netflix's Monster, which suggested his crimes may have inspired Jeffrey Dahmer, even though a direct connection is still considered only speculative. Ed Gein's impact on pop culture. His impact on pop culture is probably much more profound than his actual criminal legacy. Gein became the direct blueprint for some of the most iconic monsters seen in horror history. His relationship with his mother, along with his macabre creations, became the inspiration behind Norman Bates, the reclusive motel owner in Robert Bloch's novel and the adapted Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho. Along with that, Gein's isolated farmhouse, with furniture and masks made from human skin, was directly portrayed as the family home of Leatherface and his vicious clan in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Let me tell you what, if they had auctioned off the house in 2025 and all the masks and the belts and the gloves and the lampshades made of skin, people would have bought it like hotcakes. I cannot believe how many people were buying Jeffrey Dahmer's bullshit. You have got to be kidding me. If that was going on today, somebody would buy the house and say, no, leave it as is. I'm going to make a museum. They would. They would. Cinnamon said the Halloween stars are full of his reproductions of his fleshlights. I know. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in. Melanie said, yeah, there's a lot of morbid collectors out there. Yeah. I still cannot believe how much money was paid for Ted Bundy's his car tag
franchise. Furthermore, Gein's attempt to construct a woman suit from human skin became the core motive for Jamie Gumb, popularly known as Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. Gein's influence doesn't stop there either. His characters like Dr. Oliver Thredson from American Horror Story Asylum and even American Psycho's Patrick Bateman draw key inspiration from him. Gein is quite well known in the music field as well, mainly within the metal and grunge genres. Bands have written songs that directly reference his crimes. Dead Skin Mask by Slayer, Nothing to Gein by Mudvayne, Nipple Belt by Tad, and Skinned by Blind Melon, they all detail the horrors of his actions explicitly. Ed Gein's crimes may have been cemented in pop culture and have helped unlock.
We'll come back to that. Melanie said that is why the house was destroyed from the Idaho 4. I thought about that too because there's so many sickos out there But now in retrospect, I look, and mind you, I'm not arguing, just thought process here. Thought process, thought process. I think they went ahead and destroyed the house because they already knew that they were going to offer Koberger a plea deal. They knew they were not going to take it to trial. They just knew they weren't going to spend the money. They knew they were using the death penalty as a bargaining chip, and they knew that they didn't need anything from it. That's just my opinion, though.
Popularly known as Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs. Gein's influence doesn't stop there either, as characters like Dr. Oliver Thredson from American Horror Story Asylum and even American Psycho's Patrick Bateman draw key inspiration from him. Gein is quite well known in the music field as well, mainly within the metal and grunge genres. Bands have written songs that directly reference his crimes. Dead Skin Mask by Slayer, Nothing to Gein by Mudvayne, Nipple Belt by Tad, and Skinned by Blind Melon, they all detail the horrors of his actions explicitly. Ed Gein's crimes may have been cemented in pop culture and have helped unlock a new level of horror that filmmakers, writers, and even musicians have understood, portraying gut-wrenching horror through their works for decades now. Did he only kill 2 people? Ed Gein only ever confessed to the 2 confirmed murders of Mary Hogan and Bernice Worden, but digging deeper into
No, he didn't just kill 2 people. Hell no.
his life has led to decades of speculation that his victim count could be much, much higher. Firstly, the discovery of numerous body parts of many different individuals in his home naturally would spark suspicion, even though Gein consistently maintained that nearly all of them were sourced from grave robbings and not murder. However, several unsolved cases in the area continue to be linked to him because of their proximity and timing. The most compelling suspected victim is his own brother Henry, as we mentioned earlier. Beyond that, Gein was investigated for the disappearance of a few others as well, including 8-year-old Georgia Weckler in 1947. There was another case regarding 2 hunters called Victor Travis and Ray Burgess, who had vanished in 1952 after reportedly arguing with Gein over the fact that they were hunting on a farm next to Gein's, to which he objected. He was also questioned about a 15-year-old babysitter, Evelyn Hartley, but he then passed 2 lie detector tests to clear himself of that accusation. Despite many strong suspicions, no concrete evidence as such could directly connect him to any more homicides. The official record stands at 2 murders, but the constant doubt and the gruesome lifestyle he had keep the door open to the possibility that the true extent of his crimes will never really be known, and we can very well say that the Butcher of Plainfield took many of his darkest secrets to the grave. What was his childhood like? Ed Gein's childhood was a troubled one, fraught with isolation, abuse, and religious fanaticism that played out once more in his future during his eventual psychological instability. Ed and Henry were raised on a farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin by their parents, George and Augusta. Their father was unsuccessful in life and a raging alcoholic, but it was their mother, Augusta, who truly asserted her dominant presence over them. As a fanatically religious woman, she believed that the outside world was evil, corrupt, and a sinkhole of filth. To protect her sons, she moved them to an isolated farm and restricted them from socializing, thereby cutting them off from any normal childhood interactions. Ed was a shy child and suffered from a lazy eye along with a speech impediment. He became a target for bullies at school and retreated further into his mother's domestic oppression. She filled his head with terrifying lessons, specifically that all women except for herself were immoral and sinful. But despite the abuse, Ed developed an intense idolization of his mother and saw her as the only pure being in a wicked world. Such a worldview prevented him from developing his own identity or...
That's what he said about the barkeeper. That's what he said about her. Hang on, I gotta sneeze. Goodness, that came out of nowhere. But that's why he killed the barkeeper, because he said she's not a saint like his mother. Now, I think he killed the woman that owned the hardware store because he was running out of skin and needed a new woman's suit.
Any healthy social skills, and it made him silently dependent on Augusta. His brother, Henry, eventually began to rebel and question their mother's control over them, which created tension within the family. In conclusion, this bleak and disturbing upbringing, devoid of love or friendship outside of his mother's, distorted Gein's understanding of human relationships. His early life profoundly damaged the monster that he would become. How is his story being brought back to life today? Ed Gein's terrifying story is being brought back to life, and a direct portrayal of him has never been this meticulous and detailed. Netflix is releasing the third season of its hit true crime anthology, Monster, and this one is titled Monster, the Ed Gein Story. It stars Charlie Hunnam as the infamous Butcher of Plainfield. The series promises to dive...
Now, this is what's really weird. Well, if I could get to it, hold on.
Monster, the Ed Gein Story. It stars...
Now, I don't know if you guys are Ryan Murphy fans. I am. I came across him when I started watching the show Nip Tuck, with the two plastic surgeons. And then I started getting into the American trilogy stories, American true crime. He did the one about O.J. Simpson, Gianna Versace, Bill Clinton. He did American Horror Story. Well, now he's got this new thing going on, Monster, on Netflix. So he's done Dahmer, he did the Menendez brothers, and now he's done Ed Gein. He is really a damn genius. He really is, the way he puts everything together. Good morning, Janet. Good morning. And so how they transformed Charlie into looking like Ed Gein is scary AF. I need some Hollywood makeup for real, because my Maybelline's not cutting it no more.
Charlie Hunnam as the infamous Butcher of Plainfield. The series promises to dive deeper into his life and the horrific crimes he committed on his decaying Wisconsin farm, with the hope of exploring his psyche and how his isolation and obsession with his mother created the monster he turned out to be. The show's synopsis highlights that Gein's macabre legacy shocked the nation, along with becoming the blueprint for contemporary horror, which ended up inspiring iconic fictional characters and tropes. Following the massive Emmy-nominated success of the previous seasons of Monster, with season 1 dedicated to Jeffrey Dahmer and the second to the Menendez brothers, creators Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan now aim to explore Ed Gein, a man whose actions birthed a monster never known or seen before, and one who forever changed American crime and horror. The highly anticipated third season of the Monster series on Netflix, titled The Ed Gein Story, is set to premiere on October 3rd, 2025. Marvelous verdict! And that's our video. We hope you had a...
Okay, so he's truly effed up. He's truly effed up. And he, not even knowing, created a whole genre. And that is what? Well, some people watch all year round, and some people only watch in October. The horror industry. A book was written about his life. Alfred Hitchcock adapted it, said, I'm not going to do this about Ed Gein. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to make it about Norman Bates. And then there's many others.
And of course, the original Psycho is based on a real person and real circumstances.
I looked up Ed Gein. How did this person spawn all these ideas for different horror films?
E.T. uncovers how serial killer Ed Gein became the inspiration behind so many iconic horror movies.
People remember Ed Gein right away.
Unearthing unseen interviews with those who knew the infamous murderer.
The Butcher of Plainfield. If Hitchcock's film shocked movie audiences, what happened here outside tiny Plainfield, Wisconsin, shocked the world.
Before Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill, there was the real-life American Horror Story.
You couldn't believe that somebody could do something like that. It's really a real sick deal that he pulls.
This is where Eddie Gein lived. He was known locally as a farmhand. His home and barn stood here at a remote intersection several miles outside of town.
Back in 1957, at the end of the year, I was living in a small town in Wisconsin.
Okay, this is the guy, Robert Bloch, that wrote the book about Ed that got adapted into the movie Psycho?
About 4.
Yes, exactly, Virginia Woolf. Rob Zombie did 2 different movies about Ed Gein. House of a Thousand Corpses is one of them. Yes.
40 miles away, a series of murders had been discovered. Ed Gein was a mass murderer. He dug up graves. He was not altogether the kind of neighbor that you would prefer to have.
After a local woman who owned the store that once stood here went missing, police found a receipt in their search, which led them to Ed.
Will you please tell me what you found here in November 1957?
We looked around the outside of the house, nobody around. We finally walked in that back shed and then into the house. Well, I took his bedroom, and another deputy took the kitchen, and the sheriff took the shed. And all of a sudden he hollered and had found her body. The head was laying on the ground.
They found the death masks of about 10 women.
You know, this old codger was a young man when he came across this, okay? This is a very small town in Wisconsin. They were used to just taking care of local drunks and telling people to slow down, okay? That's really what they were used to. So then they went out there to talk to Ed because they saw a sales receipt that he had, written out, and it was really a questioning thing. Well, then they see her decapitated and hanging upside down. He was draining the blood like you do a deer. I'm just telling you right now, that's what he was doing. Then they start going through the rest of the house. Then they find 10 masks made out of human skin. Yeah. Regular workday, huh?
They found pieces of human skin used to stretch over drums and as lampshades.
What went through your mind when you saw this?
Well, it's just unbelievable to see something like that. But we knew we had the right man then.
Ed was arrested, yet the town felt no less safe after learning their mild-mannered farmer was anything but.
I had no knowledge he was any different than anybody around, really.
He was a little strange, I guess, if you say that, but I'm probably strange to you too, so.
And after further looking around, we found shoe boxes under the bed. And one shoebox had the face mask of a woman, a tavern keeper in Portage County. So that's the only reason we knew he had at least 2 victims.
Well, I guess he was so kind of quiet, and he would kind of sit and stare.
They're probably watching me. Well, let them.
It's a wonderful story. It's a story that can be reduced to 2 or 3 sentences and still has originality and great impact. Of course, Hitchcock was an integral part, but he didn't write the story.
I was interested in the crime. I didn't know the details, but I was interested in the situation. I thought to myself, there's a novel here.
That novel turned into director Alfred Hitchcock's celebrated classic.
In the case of Norman, it's really the Hamlet of horror roles. There's so many dimensions to him.
So during the next year, I brooded about it. I wondered how it was possible for anybody like that to have lived all his life in a town of 700 people without anybody suspecting him.
You know, I think I must have one of those faces you just can't help believing.
And I decided to invent a character who would be in similar circumstances, and that's how Psycho came into being.
What facts mixed in with that fiction?
I grew up in that house up there. My mother and I were more than happy.
Ed led a similar life with his mother until her death, which was years before his crimes came to light. Police discovered he kept her bedroom just as she left it.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
It's the quintessential Gothic haunted house story. The house with the motel down below. Robert Bloch had it together when he put those 2 ingredients as a kind of a pair of locations together and yet separate.
There's one spot in the Hollywood Hills where everything comes to a dead stop. You can't miss it. It's probably one of the most recognizable sets in the world, and it's right here at Universal. It is the house that Hitchcock made famous, the Psycho House.
I know, even in bright sunlight, it has a kind of awesome terror about it. I agree with you.
Bates Motel still scaring theme park guests decades later, but Ed's house burnt down months after his arrest. While some suspect arson, that was never proven.
I'm, in my own mind, I'm glad that that did happen. There would be no reason that would have been a museum.
No museum was built, but the notorious story brought early true crime obsessives out in droves to Plainfield.
It was very irritating. You were upset about the situation as it was, and then have all these people who wants to be noted for...
See, doesn't matter the generation, doesn't matter the time. People are naturally curious. You have a town of 700, and when this started hitting the newspapers, because that's what they did then, newspapers, then they came out in droves to see the house. Now, I do believe someone set it on fire. And they obviously weren't going to investigate that. But somebody, if this happened yesterday, oh, it would have been a museum.
Something like that.
Meanwhile, doctors diagnosed Ed behind bars. He was deemed insane, unable to stand trial for his diabolical deeds, leading Ed to institutions instead of prison.
Was he nervous? Was he agitated?
No. He never was nervous as long as I've known him. Even during the whole trial and everything, he never was nervous.
If you're wondering how Eddie Gein could have...
Now, don't you find that a little odd that when he was arrested, he wasn't nervous? When he was polygraphed, he wasn't nervous. They said his pulse was 71. When he went to court, he wasn't nervous. None of this made him nervous. That's a true psychopath, my friends. That is a true psychopath. He asked the FBI, can I continue my work in here? And they're like, no. We got new work for you, buddy. It's called the Thorazine Shuffle. You see? We are going to pump you full of drugs. Maybe give you a lobotomy. Maybe give you electroshock therapy. But no, you don't get to continue your work, which is making woman suits. Well, hello, paper cut. Melanie. That's why he went to the Batty house instead of prison. Exactly. Well, good for you, Teresa. She said, I was invented in 1957. Woo-hoo. Thank goodness for 1957. Because Teresa's awesome.
Committed his depraved and horrifying acts for years without being discovered. You need only know how isolated he was.
The years that I knew Ed, he was always the same. He was constant. He didn't change. He never got excited.
They'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Psycho's success spawned sequels, a shot-for-shot remake, and a TV origin story.
I mean, of course, Anthony Perkins has done an iconic turn as Norman Bates.
What do you think? This is crazy, Mom.
There was a whole wealth of material to draw on. I mean, not only the original film, but the book that the film was based on, and then in turn the life of Ed Gein.
Ed's life proved required reading for actors stepping into on-screen worlds inspired by the real-life monster.
I actually looked up on the internet about Ed Gein. Ed Gein? Gein. I'd seen the first one, the original, and it's incredibly disturbing, and I love that.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre's director, Tobe Hooper, was partly inspired by Ed Gein's House of Horrors for his cult classic.
You know, I knew I was doing something that was novel and would do some business and make some kind of mark historically.
This is the comment of the day, and I'm going to expand on this. Can everyone please tell Janet D. great job? Yes, Janet, I 100% agree. If Ed Gein was in jail right now, Lisa K. Ruetz would be writing him letters and sending him pictures of Lips kids. Yeah. Or pictures of, older ladies. That is a great comment. Because she's a nut.
I wanted to know about his life. He was a person, it made him very real for me.
He would later become known as the Butcher of Plainfield.
Norman is an unpredictable character. I think that's one of the reasons he's a popular character.
As for the man behind these craven characters, Ed died in 1984 at 77 years old.
Have you any unsolved missing persons cases on your books?
Yes.
Plainfield had plenty of those before Ed's arrest, but officially he was only tied to 2 murders. His death left the city forever curious about its claim to fame.
Who knows what makes a person do this?
Finding that answer for Ed and names alongside his in serial killer history led to a brand new department in law enforcement.
We're interviewing all the serial killers now in custody for a psychobehavioral profile.
This whole program is called the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. Tom Harris, the author of Silence of the Lambs, he spoke to several of us, and he developed this bizarre character.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
People say I was good, but I scared them. It's nice to hear that the work is effective.
Yet again, Hollywood came calling with a new Ed Gein-inspired antagonist.
Lord Almighty.
Inside another best-selling book turned terror masterpiece.
It'll be a bizarre character to the public, thinking that someone like this can't possibly exist. But we know in the National Center, this person does exist.
Busy hunting that new one, Buffalo Bill. What a naughty boy he is.
He is a composite of several serial killers. Ted Bundy would put a cast on his hand, and when the right victim came along, the victim would help him. Then you'll see a pit. There'll be a scene where there'll be a pit, and that's the Gary Heidnik case out of Philadelphia. Ed Gein in Plainfield, Wisconsin. He would kill people, and others he'd dig up their graves.
What does he do, this man you seek? He kills women. No, that is incidental.
Lecter says all the things that the human being doesn't dare voice. Because I guess we all have a very dark side of our nature. Thank goodness we don't release that dark side, otherwise there'd be anarchy and chaos.
I'm fascinated by, and always will be fascinated by, the people that are objects of cruelty and people that are left out.
Sure, you can use my phone.
Freeze! Put your hands over your head!
The book was really good, the script was really good, and the director was really good. Well, I told people, I said, this is going to be a big movie.
The Silence of the Lambs scored big at the box office and the Academy Awards, with Oscar wins in the top 5 categories. And for Ed, one more spot along the Horror Hall of Fame.
Exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. He invented a whole new genre. Episode 1 of Ed Gein, Canadian Cat Lady. The new one on Netflix. I've watched the first one. Yes, I have. I'm waiting for Greg to get home so we can watch the rest of them because it is something else. But remember, today, it's Mean Girls Day, all right? Hey, this crowd around here, we've been called every name in the book. Crime lines and lesbians, Brooks is a drunk. I'm like, hello. Are you crazy? And Mean Girls. That's one thing Daisy put on us. But today is October 3rd, and it's Mean Girls Day, and so we're going to celebrate. So, Fetch. Canadian Cat Lady. So, Brooks, I meant episode 1, or did you binge? No, I haven't binged the entire series. No, I haven't had time. If Netflix wasn't such assholes, I could have just binged it with all of you today. But they do these little things that they'll shut your channel down. Fucking commies. My goodness. Oh, Diana said, I'm such a little skis. Well, it's Mean Girls Day. It's October 3rd. Today's Mean Girls Day. So write in your burn book, do something fetch, or just say to a friend, hey, loser, we're going shopping today. Well, you guys, sorry for the hiccup in the previous episode. And thanks for coming back in, because I just think that this case is more than mesmerizing. So you guys have a great rest of your day. I do have a third channel that I'll bring out eventually, but I don't want to lose any friends over it. And, hey, mods, you're awesome. Thanks for telling everyone. Oh, look at that. Carrie G said, I'm one of Brooks's Mean Girls. Diva said, very good show. Hey, Sweet Toughness. Ilyanka said, thanks, Brooks. Have a great day, everyone. So do something fun today. Celebrate Mean Girls Day. And you all have a good one. If I don't see you on one of the other channels or in Discord, then I'll see you back here on Monday morning, because I have a big show to do about Summer Wells. You guys are the absolute best. Thanks for being here. And check out the show. Check out, of course, my show. You can binge that all day. That's good for your old buddy Brooks. But check out this show on Netflix. It's called Monsters, the Ed Gein Story.